Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's live Q&A. I'm Tim Box. I'm a mind coach. I'm a therapist specialising in anxiety issues. Every day I see clients one-to-one to help them, the other side of their anxiety issues, help them get back in control of their anxiety response. And I also run this YouTube channel here. You might know me from my TEDx talk that was called How to Stop Feeling So Anxious About Anxiety. You might know me from my book, Clear Your Head. But I have this channel and I put up videos and I try and help people with their anxiety issues. And I say most Fridays, maybe not most Fridays, maybe every other Friday, a little bit less than that, I go live on the channel just to do a live Q&A so that you guys can ask me your questions and get answers to your anxiety issues, straight from the horse's mouth, as it were. I tend to think understanding is the antidote to a lot of our anxiety issues. What tends to have happened when we feel anxiety is there's a confusion in the subconscious that's gone on. And that comes from experience. It comes from life's challenges, all that sort of stuff. So if we can get the right information, we can get the other side of it. And that's what these lives are all about, is to give you guys the right information. Now, let me tell you, if this is your first time on one of these, let me tell you how it works. You literally put any questions you have up regarding anxiety, and I will work my way down them one at a time. If you're in the room and you've not been in before, say hello. If you have been in before, I'm sure you'll say hello. Please do. Please interact. Please chat with each other as well. Very often, I'm just watching you guys chat with each other. That happens. But any questions you've got, let me know. I do have a load of questions that I could get into, things that have been left on my videos that I haven't been able to answer in text because it's just too long to do a full answer. So I've saved them for these lives. So if nobody asks me a question, don't worry, I've got plenty to talk about. And who knows, it might just include the answer to the question that you might have asked anyway. I'm gonna just briefly say hello to Carlos, Diane, Lozzie, Joey, Ava, and Matt. Good evening. Good to see you guys. Got some comments. Oh, Carlos and Diane are saying sorry for my loss. For you guys who don't know, a week for me this week. My mentor and friend John Chase sadly passed away this week. That was difficult for me this week, as you can imagine. But Diane, if you're not up for this today, we would understand. Don't worry, Diane. This is good for me. This is where I want to be. Okay, so thank you, bless you for that. But I think it'd be good to get back into it. Fuzzy Tubby, that's an excellent username. Hello. Right, so what I'm going to do, can't stay long, have a visitor coming, but you've been watching my videos on YouTube. That's great. I'm so pleased. I hope you've been leaving a like and comment on them when you can and share the video. That's what we're meant to say, isn't it? If we share them, then the message gets spread and the channel grows. Channel's been growing very nicely recently. Thank you for all of your efforts to help with that happening. But yeah, it's a process growing a YouTube channel. But to be fair, it's not like YouTube's not my job. So anything is a bonus there because it just helps the message get out to more people. So I do appreciate it. Strawberry Polka Dot, good evening. Yeah, Matt, doing this to take my mind off it. Exactly. I think there's times for sitting in contemplation, definitely, and you shouldn't neglect that. But there are also times to do life, and I think that's what we're doing here. Right. Anyway, let's get into questions because I've got lots of questions that need answering. Let me put one up on the screen for you. Tim, do you believe in vigorous exercise to help with recovery from physical symptoms, or do you advise sticking to low-level exercise? Right, first of all, anyone that knows me will know I have a mild objection to the word symptoms when it comes to anxiety, because symptoms kind of suggests, an emergent process response to illness. Anxiety is not an illness, it's an emotion. So I think if we treat it like that, then we have a much better chance of getting it under control and a much better chance that we stop fearing it quite so much as well. So symptoms, I would rather say physical sensations than symptoms, because then we're sort of talking about something that, okay, let's deal with that, let's interact with that, let's do something about that. Exercise for recovering from physical sensations. Where it comes to exercise, I think do what you enjoy is the most important thing. If you don't like doing a lot of exercise, don't. If you think it's of value and you get benefit from it, do it. I know why a lot of people get value and feel benefit from doing a lot of physical exercise when they're experiencing the physical sensations that come with a high anxiety. You know, the sort of racing heart rate, the tension, because it's basically you're doing what your body is demanding of you. Yeah, the physical sensations that come with high anxiety, they're actually the fear response. They're fight or flight, and that's adrenaline filling your system. So doing something with it can feel right. You know, it can make you feel a lot better. I saw a client once who said they got past anxiety issues in the past by doing like a 10K run every day, which I can't think of anything worse to do, but that really worked for them, you know, because it kind of convinced them that their body was still functioning okay. You know, they can do this. It's not falling to bits. There's nothing actually physically wrong with me, because that can be the thing that we start to worry about. So I think do what's right for you. I don't think there's any, as far as I'm aware, there's no prescriptive method of doing exercise to recover from physical sensations. You know, presumably you've already seen a doctor about the physical sensations, because that's what we do, isn't it? We go to the doctor and the doctor says it's anxiety when he's confirmed there's nothing physically wrong with us. So there's always that caveat, isn't there? Don't do more exercise than your body can allow you to do, but do what's right for you. I don't believe there's any right or wrong. I've never found that to be the case. And to be fair, if you want to go to somebody, a therapist who's going to talk about what's the best activities to take part in, that's probably not going to be me, because the way that I work with people with anxiety is I seek to re-educate them about what it is, and then we deal with the subconscious patterns of thought that are driving that particular emotion. But I hope that makes sense. I hope that provided some sort of answer there. I'm just going to go back to the comments now, because I can see a lot of comments have just come in while I've been talking about that. Carlos, let's put your one up, because we're Tim, this month there will be my driving test, hopefully. In these days I've been thinking of the emotional impact of failing, since it's a goal I'm looking for years. Any advice to handle it? I would suggest, okay, there's a saying, you know, that we focus on grows. I think, what is it, Tony Robbins says, where focus goes, energy flows, or something like that. I'm not saying if you think about the emotional impact of failing, you will fail. I'm saying that if you think about the emotional impact of failing, you will create the emotional impact, and you haven't failed. Yeah. I think when we do the imagining of the worst case scenario, we start to respond as if the worst case scenario is happening to us. Doesn't mean that we're creating that reality. It just means that our body and our mind is living that reality before we've even got to the thing, whether it happens or not. And this is why I think people, you know, the best thing to do is focus on the possibility of how good it would feel to pass. Yeah, not necessarily because that's, you're visualizing your goal and you're going to make it happen. I mean, there's elements of that. Clearly, we know that, you know, the thing that what you believe is what's going to happen. And there's a lot of power, and there's a lot of advocation of visualization. But simply because, why not feel really good going into it rather than really bad? So that would be my advice, Carlos, is understand that wherever you're focusing your conscious attention, you're going to experience the emotions that go with that thought and the physical responses of that thought. Yeah. So, yeah. Imagine how great it's going to feel when you pass. It's been a goal for years, all that you've been through to get there. Amazing. You'll be over the moon, won't you? Strive towards the positive. I'll tell you something as well. In my experience, we move towards the good stuff a lot more energetically than we move away from the bad stuff. Now, if you're being chased by a lion, you might refute that. You might dispute that idea. But in terms of motivating factors, in my experience working with clients, when they're motivated to feel a certain good way, it's they're a lot more likely to get their result than if they're simply motivated to not feel so anxious. Yeah. I hope that makes sense. Right. Fuzzy Tubby said, yoga is a great one to get rid of stress, but go to a class. Yeah. I've heard a lot of good things about yoga. I was thinking about Pilates recently. As in maybe doing, not just I was randomly abstractly thinking about Pilates, but I was thinking that might be, I'm quite tempted by Pilates. Maybe anyone knows about that. Give me their review of Pilates. Okay, Joey, this is a great question. I can already see. Why do people say you can't think your way to recovery? I feel like we can't recover from this without thinking our way through it. Right. Oh, God, that's a brilliant question. And I think it's a brilliant question. I'm thinking it's a brilliant question because I've wanted to make a video on this for a while, but I've never really worked out the best way of framing it for YouTube so that people watch it. Yeah. Okay. I think people are talking about we can't think our way out of recovery. We can't reason our way through an anxiety response. Yeah. Because it's an emotional response and our emotions are done by our subconscious. And traditionally, it's our conscious that does our reason and our rationale. So it's like different parts of our mind's process are doing those two things. And also because people are constantly saying, I know this is silly. I know I shouldn't feel this way, but it doesn't seem to have any impact on me. So I think it's partly the theories that we work on, the model of the mind that we work on, and also experience that tells us that. But you are absolutely right that every response that we have, every anxiety response we have is for a reason. Your mind is literally doing cause and effect. A certain stimulus equals a certain emotional response. So there is some degree, in fact, a huge degree of logic, as in this, I think, is appropriate. And I think we don't do ourselves enough service when we say this is illogical, this is irrational, because it is perfectly rational, because irrational means without reason. And there's always a reason. And all that's happening here is you don't agree with the reason. Yeah, but don't think your mind has no reason for anything. So the way I work with clients, I do a lot of thinking our way to recovery. But it starts with understanding why and accepting why our mind is currently doing it. So yeah, you might say, well, hang on, I've gone into fight or flight just thinking about going into work tomorrow. That's clearly inappropriately high, that level, that degree of anxiety response. But then when you think about it, it's like, yeah, well, there's certain things that I traditionally associate with going into a work environment that are really, really unpleasant for me. Yeah, maybe when you were at school, you got bullied. Maybe when you were at a certain job, you had really negative attention thrown your way. Maybe you had a horrible boss. Maybe you were at a job that you just weren't suited to and you hated it. So there's something about that association with that environment that is creating that particular emotional response. So it's not illogical. But the problem was we were just saying, surely I shouldn't feel this anxious about this thing without actually thinking, well, hang on, why do I feel this anxious about this thing then? It's the assumption that it's illogical that then stops us being able to logic our way through it. If we actually meet it on its own terms, and you'll hear this from therapists all the time in terms of understanding why is that part of your mind creating this response. And it's the most frustrating thing in the world when I hear therapists say anxiety can just strike for no reason. There's always a reason. Yeah, there's always a reason. Give your mind a bit more credit than thinking it's just an illogical, oh, here it is, I've just afflicted with this disorder that strikes. There's always a reason. Understanding the reason can be a huge step towards changing your responses. So I hope that provides an answer in some way. I feel like if you sort of be patient with me, Joey, there will be a video coming on this in terms of breaking this down properly rather than just me doing my Friday evening ramble on that one. But yeah, hope that helps. Lozzie, like we got here. I'm learning to not catastrophize into a spiral of high anxiety when I get the anxious thoughts and sensations. It's a habit that you get into over time. So consciously not reacting is what I'm working on. Yeah, the thing I would say, we create that spiral because we have like an anxious thought and then we react to it. So we might have sensations that come with it. And then a bit of us says, oh, then those sensations there, that's anxiety. And then we react to those sensations as in, oh, no, that's my anxiety. And then, of course, we feel more anxious. And so we have more physical sensations and it just becomes that feedback loop. I think the thing that we do to break that loop is we need to invalidate some of the beliefs that perpetuate it, if you like. And I think the belief that I'm always working on getting clients to kind of reject or let go of is this idea that anxiety is in any way a threat to you. And I think we get the idea that it's a threat because we get told it's an illness. It feels uncomfortable. It feels horrible. It feels visceral. So yeah, it feels right that it would be an illness then, something I'm afflicted with. It doesn't feel like it was warranted, this response, so it must be a malfunction. And it's not. As I've kind of been intimating already this evening, it's your mind maybe having an overreaction to certain situations and stimulus simply because you have experience in that area that is unpleasant or negative. Yeah. I saw a client recently, and she was saying, I'm not afraid of anything. And yet, why am I, if I'm not afraid, then why am I feeling so, and she listed all of her anxiety sensations. And I was like, you are afraid of something. You're afraid of anxiety. That's the thing you're most fearful of. And she said, yeah, you know what? That's it. The idea that I will always be this anxious, the idea that I'm stuck this way, that is her biggest fear, because her mum was always anxious, always terrified of everything. So as soon as she recognized high anxiety sensations, she started to worry, oh no, here it comes, the family traits being passed down. That was what she was afraid of. She couldn't recognize anything like outside of her in her life that was making her anxious, but it was her anxiety itself, So it's about recognizing, hey, this stuff can't hurt me, actually. Anxiety is just an emotion. And then before you know it, it all calms down. But that's not reacting to it. It's a good way of putting it, isn't it? It's like, you can feel this way without having to react to the way you're feeling. What is it? Was it Captain Jack Sparrow said, the problem is not the problem is your attitude to it. Wise words from a drunken pirate. Many a wise word from a drunken pirate, which I think is a good saying in and of itself. Okay, Joey, that was your second question coming up here. Also, what's a good approach when our brain is racing with what ifs? Feels like there's a million scenarios in my head about why anxiety could get out of control. It's hard to disregard every scenario. The thing is, it's like the what ifs. So, I hear the what ifs thing so much, because that's the problem, isn't it? When we go into a state of high anxiety, we're in threat mode. Yeah, it's like I know I've used this analogy. I've overused this analogy, but I'm going to use it again anyway, just in case you haven't heard it before. It's the Starship Enterprise thing. Yeah, when Kirk hits red alert, then everyone goes to battle stations. Only the people on the bridge know why he's hit red alert. Only those people know what the threat is. But all the other crew members on board the Starship Enterprise are all running around to battle stations. They don't know what they're defending against. They're just looking out the window for Klingons right now. Yeah, but that's because now everything they look at is that the threat? Is that the threat? Is that the threat? And that's what happens with the what ifs when we're in a high anxiety state. Every thought, our mind's going, is that the threat? What threat could that thing pose? What about that other thing I was thinking about? Could that take me out? And suddenly everything seems terrifying. But here's the answer to the what ifs. So what if the thing does happen? You know the answer to that question already. What if the worst thing happens? You know the answer. You'll cope with it in some way. And how do you know that that's the answer? Because you always have. You are still alive and typing on your keyboard and watching the screen. That means everything that life has thrown at you, you've coped with it in some way. Now, sometimes it might not have felt like you coped. It might have felt like you got knocked flat on your ass. But guess what? You got up, and here we are, still alive, still living and breathing and talking and walking. So that means we coped. Yeah, and have a little bit of faith in your own resilience. And the other thing to remember about the what ifs, 99.99 recurring % of the time, nothing happens at all. Life is very boring. Yeah, this is why we have like biopic films that cover like 80 years of someone's life, and it's like 2.5, 3 hours long. Because most of the time, even the most interesting lives that they make biopics of, most of the time nothing's happening. It's uninteresting. So the chances of the horrific thing happening are a lot less likely than we're currently crediting. Yeah, as much as we might like to think life is a whole series of exciting highlights, 99.99 recurring % of the time, nothing much happens at all. Yeah, but if it does, we'll cope with it. Yeah. Always remember, you're not anxious about the thing, you're anxious about your perceived ability to cope with the thing. So it often comes back to how you feel about you. So remind yourself you are better than you are currently crediting yourself. Okay. Tony. Oh, this is a good question. Why does anxiety cause cold hands and feet? Does it? I mean, I can see why it would, because it's all about, the blood pumping to the major organs and protecting them. Doesn't always, if it's like, if you're sitting there thinking, wait a minute, when I'm anxious, it doesn't. Does that mean there's something wrong with me? Anxiety is fight or flight. It's protection state. So your blood needs to go to the areas that most require protecting, which is major organs and stuff like that. So it can do. It doesn't always, but it's interesting that you've noticed that. But again, it's not a malfunction. It's your body doing a really good job of keeping you safe in the face of perceived threat. Now you might say, but I'm not under threat. Yeah, but a mistake is not a malfunction. Yeah, it just means your mind has got the idea of something is happening a little bit, something is more threatening than it actually is. Dan needs to go. Oh, I'm going to say goodbye, but that was about 20 minutes ago, so I've missed that. Carlos, hang on, let me take that one down. Sorry, Tony. And navigating the live streaming system. Okay. I remember sitting on my desk waiting for the right moment, and you said there is not a right moment to start on. The next day I started my license. Thanks so much for your advice. Helped. Okay, Carlos, yeah, that's brilliant. I'm so pleased that did help, because I think that's the thing, isn't it? We're waiting for our anxiety to subside before we do the thing in our life that we want to do. We sort of delay. We say, well, I'll wait till I've got sort of this anxiety issue sorted before I go and do the thing. And of course, if we make space and time for anxiety, guess what we'll fill it with? Yeah, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So yeah, I always advise people that don't wait for it, because oftentimes as well, it's the doing it that allows you to just take your focus away from how anxious you feel. And I'm not talking about distraction per se. I'm talking about just the fact that living your life stops you pausing to create the extra anxiety that you would otherwise feel. Hope that helps. But no, really pleased. I'm really excited that you're making this journey, Carlos. I really am. So for those of you who don't know, Carlos is a member of the members area, and we have a lot more sort of I don't know. We can chat about a lot more in terms of what's going on with us personally, as in, like, not necessarily one-to-one, because it's still a group chat, but it's like we kind of know each other in there now, So it's nice to be following a story along. There you go. Look, we can. You can become a member of the channel. There you go. What a perfect time to advertise the members area. If you like what I'm talking about, if you see the value of these lives and the videos, there's so many more videos in the members area. There's a regular weekly live stream that we do in the members area, and all you've got to do, there's a button on the homepage of my channel when you're on a PC rather than your devices. I think the join button is only on when you're on a computer, I think. But yeah, there's so much more in the members area. And I do think somebody said to me the other day, because they wanted one-to-one therapy, and it's not for everyone. And in terms of the costs of it as well, it's not for everyone. And they said, is there something that isn't, what would you advise? And I always used to say, well, get my book, because that's cheap, it's easy, that's an affordable thing, and it's a good entry point for how we might think about these things and how we might change things. These days, I'm like, join the members area, because that's not just here's an absolute ton of information, but also here's a community that you can engage with on a weekly basis. So it's ongoing support. So that's always my best go-to now, is that. Anyway. And in my opinion, I don't know what everyone offers on the internet, and I'm obviously biased, but in my opinion, it's like it'd be the best thing to do. I wish it was around when I was feeling anxious, because I really think the way I felt when I was younger and I was dealing with my anxiety, if I had something like this to watch, I wouldn't have given a shit in the end. It wouldn't have mattered to me. I'd have probably done things a bit differently, Anyway, enough advertising. Let's get back to the comments. Matt, Tim, have you or anybody ever tried the Wim Hof method of breathing and cold water immersions? What are your thoughts on that? So, okay, I don't know anyone. Well, I know some people that have done. I think Dipti Tate, who is also here on YouTube, has done Wim Hof. I think she really loved it as well. I seem to remember. I remember at the UK Hypnosis Convention, we were both speakers last year. And I went to hers. No, it was the year before that I went to her presentation. And I think she was talking about it then. Hang on, let me start that sentence again. I have some friends, Loz and Baz at the Ashes. Their business is rock solid. They're a PT and life coaching couple. They do ice baths every morning. Now, I don't know if they're doing Wim Hof breathing, and it's a Wim Hof thing, but I know that they they swear by their ice baths. I think I would just swear at my ice bath if I was doing that. But yeah, they're into them. And I know I've got a client as well that does actually cold water dipping in she's in Scotland, and she does it, literally in the sea. We've also got another friend who likes to do that. Not like regularly, like the client I'm talking about. I think people love it though. That's my thing, is that rather than it being a specific anti-anxiety tool, because I'm a little bit resistant to the idea of anti-anxiety tools. Yeah, because then it just suggests anxiety is something you need a toolkit to be guarded against. And I don't think it needs to be that way. But I'm a very big fan of doing the things that you find enjoyable and living your life. And don't do them for the reasons of they calm my anxiety. Do them for the reasons of, because I love it. I really enjoy doing that. Yeah, I think, do that. But I don't have any, I can't talk about it as in, I've done it and this is, or I've studied it or anything like that. But I have been, I don't even like a chilly shower. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it'd be for me. You never know though. I used to hate running, and now I actually quite like, I get frustrated if I haven't had time to go out for a run. It's weird how you change as you get older. Fuzzy Tubby. Why is it that I know that all this stress and anxiety is not logical, but when I try and explain this to my brain, it doesn't want to behave and go along with my sensible advice? Okay, when I hear people say this, I get what you're saying, right? And absolutely, when you're in that moment of high anxiety, you've got to remember your brain is a one-way street. You're in output mode rather than give me some information that I can work with and that can help me out here. When you're in that moment, it's very difficult to shift it, because if you like, your subconscious mind is just on survival mode. You're full of adrenaline and all that sort of thing. And you're trying to calm yourself. And even if you're not in like a high fight or flight state, if you're in a sort of mild anxiety state, it still is very much, you're in the automatic processes. You're in the automatic sort of save your life rather than build a happy life sort of thing. So you got to do the work in between. That's what I'm always saying. Do the work before anxiety happens, so that maybe it doesn't happen quite so aggressively. But I tell you something, anyone that's followed this channel, and if this is the first time you're finding this channel, then you've got a lot to discover on this channel in terms of the videos. Anyone that's received benefit from this channel, they haven't been in the midst of anxiety and I'm going to watch this video. And yet some people have, and it's calmed them down and that kind of thing. But generally what you have the most success with, or you will have the most success with, is watching the videos when you're not in a high anxiety place, when it's just like, okay, let me see what this is about, and understanding it to the point where your mind gets the message. Oh, actually, I don't need to create, I'm not under threat here. I don't need to create this response. And I think ultimately it's about understanding anxiety to the point where you no longer fear the anxiety. Yeah. I think and also I would add just as an extra thing here, there's a difference between telling yourself that this is fine when you haven't actually listened first to why your mind is doing this. And I know it seems a really bad idea to listen to your anxiety, because your anxiety is telling you all sorts of horrible things. But it's about listening without fear, knowing that the part of you that's saying this is not telling you facts, it's asking a question. It's not saying everything is going to go wrong. It's saying, is everything going to go wrong? So then you come at it, then use that logic then. Yeah, then use that reasonable, that kind of more functional, logical part of your thinking to say, hey, I know everything's fine. I know there's no monsters under the bed. I know the horrible thing that I'm imagining isn't actually going to happen. Yeah, but all too often we're listening to those anxious thoughts with fear and saying, no, it'll be all right. Oh, this is silly. This is stupid. You shouldn't be saying this. And we're sort of reacting to it as if it's telling us these horrible truths, And again, it comes down to, if you're not afraid of what your mind is telling you, then it won't come armed. It won't come laden with anxiety and fear. Yeah. The way I think about this, and I don't know if this is going to be directly relevant, Fuzzy Tubby, but it might be. The way I think about this is that if a kid comes to us and says, "Mummy, I can't go to sleep because there's a monster under the bed," yeah, we know there isn't a monster under the bed. Yeah, the mother doesn't then panic and grab the child up and run out the door and lock the door and call the police and say, "Oh my God, there's a monster in my house," because the mum knows there's no monster. Yeah, but all too often we treat our kid, our bit of us that's bring anxiety, as if it's telling us that, and we're like, "Oh my God, a monster." Yeah, we've got to be like, "Okay, let's turn the light on, have a look under the bed, everything's fine." You know, it's our reaction to that thought that is the problem, not the thought itself. Yeah. Oh, and that's interesting. The next comment actually is kind of appropriate. Tim, thank you for telling me to stop calling anxiety the monster. Yeah. Okay, I'm glad that helped. Yeah, because and Kay, actually, you prompted me, and I am talking about making videos. The next one I'm making, I think it is anyway, because this is what I've got planned. Is the question, how do we stop feeding the anxiety monster? And it's going to be based around the idea. Well, let's stop calling it a monster for a start. Yeah, because that we focus on grows, as we said at the start of this live. And unfortunately, it just means that we're focusing on the idea there's a monster coming for us. And of course, that's going to create anxiety. Well, it's going to create fear, but often we confuse fear and anxiety. But yeah. But I'm glad that helped. I'm glad that thought helped. Tony, how do you start to trust? How do you start your trust uncertainty? Is it to trust uncertainty? Well, I think you've got to, haven't you? Here's the thing. So I don't think anyone in the room is a fortune teller. I don't think any. Apologies if you are, and I'm dissing your profession here. I don't think we're not mind readers. We don't know what's going to happen. Every single day of our lives, surprising things have happened. Sometimes really surprising and shocking things. Other times, just like, I didn't know that was going to happen. Yeah. A lot of the time it's boring, I grant you, but we don't know what everyone's going to say to us when we see them the next day. We don't know what the weather's going to be like exactly. We don't know what's going to be on TV, what the TV show we're watching is how it's going to turn out. We just don't know. We don't know that, oh, there was a fly just came across my face there. We can't predict the future. So as a result, we've had to become very good at reacting to the unexpected. Yeah. So it's what we do best, funnily enough, because we've done it every single day of our lives. So trusting our ability to deal with uncertainty, that's what it's about. Yeah, it's what you're best at. And I know sometimes it doesn't feel like we're good at it. It feels like, oh my God, that's overwhelming, that thing. There's too much coming in at once. And there's going to be a time in everyone's life where so much comes in that it can feel like we're drowning. But understand that's not a malfunction in you. That's just, okay, these are stormy waters right now that I'm navigating. But I know I will navigate the other side of them because I always have. That's how you start to trust you in the midst of uncertainty. I hope I've understood that question correctly. But that would be my advice. Right. Nev, what is your opinion on exposure therapy, especially for severe social anxiety? Okay, so I could talk about this for a long time. I'm going to try not to. But exposure therapy, right. I don't do exposure therapy. I'm not a CBT practitioner. I know a lot of people online. There's some of the people that I follow. I like some of the stuff they do when they're talking about exposure. The thing I hate most is when people are just saying they give you tips about how to do your exposures. And exposures it's a noun now. It's not a verb. It's a noun. Your exposures. Yeah. Instantly, then you've now built these exposures to be the big challenge. So you inevitably feel anxious about your exposures. So it just creates a barrier that doesn't need to be there. Yeah. Now, the point of exposure therapy, as I understand it anyway, somebody who doesn't do it, but the point of it is not that we just do it until we no longer, we desensitize ourselves to it. The point is that we do it and then we learn, all that fear that I took into that experience was unwarranted. I'm still alive. I'm not damaged in any way. It didn't hurt. Yeah, it's about what we reflect upon after we've experienced the exposure to the thing that was causing our anxiety. Yeah, it's going to be tricky, obviously, because you're going into the situation that is most triggering your high anxiety. But then when you come out the other side of it, it's about saying, hey, but that wasn't as bad as I'd imagined. And here I am, perfectly healthy and intact, the other side of it. So we learn then that that thing we'd built up to be terrifying was only maybe, just quite scary. So then when we go into the next time we do it, we're not expecting terrifying. Yeah. So our preemptive anxiety isn't expecting terrifying, it's expecting quite scary. And as a result, we're not quite as preemptively anxious as we were because our mind isn't creating such a monster out of that idea. So then when we go into it again, maybe it isn't quite scary now. Maybe it's just mildly scary. So then the next time we go into it, we're only expecting mildly scary now. And we just gradually work our way down until we're expecting it to be no big deal at all. So that's the point of it. And I'm sure it can work absolutely brilliantly well. Neb, in answer to your, what's your, the reason I see a lot of people who have not had any joy with exposure therapy is because they've just found it unpleasant. They've just found it as in, I didn't do them in the end because I did one or two and it was just like, no, I can't handle that. I'm not seeing any changes. And I think if you go into it and you think this is just going to automatically desensitize me, then maybe you go in under the wrong pretext there. But if you go into it and say, right, my job is to do it, have a really, maybe have a shit time because it's just, it feels too much for me. But then when I get the other side of it, realize, look back at the experience for what it actually was when I'm not in that fight or flight mode anymore. Oh, actually, I did this and the result wasn't as bad as I thought and the experience wasn't as bad as I thought. And then maybe it can be good, For severe social anxiety, so you're going to be talking about going into social situations. Yeah, guess what? Sometimes you'll have a good time, sometimes you'll have a shit time. That's what's going to happen there. Ultimately, though, Nev, your goal is to realize that it doesn't matter what other people think of you. That's your goal. That one bit of information to go into your subconscious at the level of, I now believe that to be true, because that's what is true. Yeah, even when I'm in a situation where, but these people, if they judge me negatively, then it affects my profession or my advancement in my life or that sort of thing. Ultimately, though, it ain't life or death. What other people think of you isn't going to impede your path to happiness in any way that you can't overcome. That's ultimately what you need to be learning. And I tell you that because that's what I needed to learn when I was socially anxious. Okay. Hope that helps. Christine, good evening. Sorry, you're late. 6:28. What time do you call this, Christine? Welcome. Fuzzy Toby needs to go now. No problem for answering your question. You're very welcome. Christine, I had a big setback after a really good couple of weeks. I feel disappointed in myself and deflated. Hey, look, the thing that if there was one thing I could change about everyone, and it would probably put me out of a job, I would stop people beating themselves up. Yeah, as in the bit of you that criticizes yourself or gives you a hard time, suddenly, broken, doesn't work anymore. I can only think good things about myself. I can only be kind to myself. If that happened, people like me wouldn't have a job anymore. Yeah, because we'd get things wrong. We'd have setbacks. We'd have times when it didn't go so well. Yeah. But we would recognize it for what it is, just part of the journey. And we wouldn't then pile on self-castigation on top of that. So don't feel disappointed in yourself. Don't feel deflated because, as we say, setbacks are not steps back. Yeah, we think, I'm back to where. No. The journey is forwards all the time. Yeah, and you hope you're going up to recovery, you're going up that sort of way. But sometimes, of course, like all mountain ranges, they're not just straight lines. They're a bit like this. They're a bit wavy. Okay, and all that's happened there is the next steps forward. That went down a bit, that one. But I know the next ones will go up probably as a result of that. Always remember that. Don't be hard on yourself, Christine. You wouldn't, what advice would you give somebody else going through that? You'd say, hey, don't beat yourself up. That's okay. Tomorrow's another day. Always think of it that way. Right. Let me go for this one. Hannah. Hey, I wonder what your advice would be for waking up with intense, anxious physical sensation in the body, even before thoughts have started. It makes me feel in freeze mode from the moment I wake up. Okay, so what's going on here, Hannah? Even though you're not consciously focusing on something that would cause you to feel anxious, you're just getting sensations, and that's what, oh my God, where are they coming from? And that's what, like you say, puts you in freeze mode, as in, what's going to happen now, that kind of thing. You've got to recognize, first of all, there's what I'm sure you've heard people refer to as the cortisol awakening process, where your body's job is to inject a little bit of cortisol into your system to wake you up in the morning, to get you out of bed, to get you doing. Yeah. So basically, to put it, this is very basic, as in this is the only way I can get my head around it. Melatonin and cortisol do this seesawing thing in terms of the levels in your body. So when it gets dark and and it's nighttime and we're not doing anything, melatonin increases, which puts us to sleep, because cortisol comes down because we're no longer focusing on the things day to day, which is the stress hormone, by the way. That reduces. Yeah. And then when the lights come back on at daytime, melatonin reduces and cortisol is the thing that boom, starts us up again. Yeah. Because the stress hormone. Yeah. Now that when we've become very sensitive to our sensations in our body, that can feel like intense anxiety striking. Yeah, but it's just a physical sensation. The anxiety happens when you notice the physical sensation, because that's the emotion that goes with it. Yeah. Even if it's before thoughts have started, then it's one of two things. It's either the cortisol thing just bumping you up to start, and then you getting anxious about that, or it's the fact that there's a bit of your subconscious that is now priming and ready to check for, are we anxious? Yeah, there's a little part of your mind that you're not consciously aware of that is so worried about anxiety and waking with anxiety that whenever you open your eyes and start the day, that bit does its morning routine check. Any anxiety? Are we okay? Are we okay? And that's a really anxious thing for your mind to do. It literally creates the anxiety that it's trying to avoid, trying not to find, if you like. Yeah. So how do you deal with that though? You allow it to be, because it's not a malfunction. Yeah. You might say it's a mistake your mind is making, but it's not a malfunction. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. In fact, you could argue it means you've got a very healthy awakening system. You could argue it means there's a bit of your subconscious really looking after you and trying desperately not to find anything wrong. Yeah. I'll tell you something, when you stop fearing that feeling and you just feel it and let it be, it will pass before you even notice it. And that's what I would do if I were you. If that hits you, your job then is to say, right, okay, let's get on with my day. Let's get up, brush my teeth, get ready, get dressed. Stop paying attention to how you feel. Pay more attention to what you're doing day to day, as in getting up, get your breakfast. Then about halfway through the morning, you'll realize, oh, hang on, that's gone. When did that go? Didn't even notice. Yeah. And I'm not saying distract yourself. I'm not saying I must desperately do something so I don't notice the anxiety. I'm saying focus your attention where you want it to go. Okay, I want to get my clothes on. I want to get my teeth done. Get on with your life. And then you stop creating the anxiety. Because for whatever reason it hits you, it's only you focusing on it and being afraid of it that perpetuates it. I hope that makes sense. Cool. I keep feeling anxiety, keep having fed up feeling. Oh, but then you've said here, I watch a video like religious to help myself. Well, I hope the videos are helping. I hope, that's the purpose of them there. And I'll tell you something as well. Sometimes, we hear a bit of information and suddenly we go, oh, that's it. That's the answer. Suddenly just everything clicks into place and we stop having such a severe reaction to certain things. That's great when that happens. But most of the time, it's a cumulative thing. It's kind of like we immerse ourselves in this way of thinking about it so that our thinking updates and changes. Yeah, there's so much going on up there that we can't possibly track and be aware of. I would say keep watching the videos, keep finding the answers to the questions, and don't fear anxiety. Work out why you're fearing it. Yeah. Is it because you fear that this is the thing you're going to be afflicted with for the rest of your life? Well, guess what? You're not. Yeah, because nobody is stuck with this. Nobody, no matter where they are in their journey with anxiety, is stuck like it for good. We are constantly updating. Our brain is constantly growing. We can't stop that happening because we're constantly inputting new information via our senses. So we know that we don't remain the same. It doesn't happen. If we're fearing the sensations themselves, guess what? Those sensations pass. They might feel intense when they strike, but they always pass. And the thing about them is most of them are not inherently bad. We're just framing them as bad because we feel like they're associated with the thing we think is bad, the anxiety. Like, racing heart rate, sweating, muscles tense, and things like that. I could be describing a panic attack. I could be describing having an orgasm. It's only about the framework of how we experience those sensations. So they might not be inherently negative at all. We're just afraid of them, so they feel negative as a result of that. Yeah. But yeah, so keep watching the videos, and the path is to stop fearing anxiety. As soon as you stop fearing it, you're the other side of it. You ask anyone that's got the other side of their anxiety issues, how did you do it? And some people will tell you, I use this technique, I use this method, I went to see this person. But most of them will say, I don't know, really. I just, at some point, I stopped regarding anxiety as something I needed to be paying attention to. And the reason we stopped paying attention to it is because it stopped being scary to us. We stopped being afraid of it. So we didn't feel the need to focus on it like it was a threat. I hope that helps. Look, I've made it to the bottom of all the comments. Well done, me. Yay. Okay. Well, look, we're on 46 minutes, so I think that's as good a place to end. It's a Friday night, so it's weekend time. I hope you've got something lovely on plan for the weekend. In the UK here, it's bank holiday, so we have Monday off, so that's very exciting. But if you're not got anything planned, take the time, have a rest, enjoy some downtime. Yeah. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, share this video if you've got something from it. And as I said before, if you want to become a member of the channel, I would highly recommend it, because it's a good ongoing support system. Okay. I'm just going to check back in the comments there, because a couple more comments came in. Okay, I'm gonna have to catch that one next time, Ak, but we'll hang on, I'm reading it now. Oh, you got me reading it. Okay, it's just bad anxiety and COVID. Took me 5 months to get better, then got pregnant and started antidepressant. But give yourself space is my very quick advice there. Give yourself space and time. Yeah. Don't feel the need to be all sorted out all at once. Also, if you're that one requires more time than I've got at the moment, I think. Just to talk, maybe we start with that one. Maybe I'll make a little, I'll save that one, and we'll come back to that the next time I'm on the live. Okay. Things will get better, by the way. They will get better. I know it can feel really difficult to believe that, but they will. Keep following what we're doing here, and they will. Trust me. Okay. All right. We're going to call that it for today then. As I say, have a good weekend, everyone. Have a relaxing weekend. Have your downtime. I look forward to seeing you on the next live. I think we've got another live coming up in a few weeks where I'm going to have Howard Cooper as my guest. You may know Howard Cooper from his Rapid Change channel on YouTube. Check out him as well. He's awesome. He's a good friend of mine and is almost as good as me at this. No, he's good. He's a good fella, and we're gonna do a dual live. So we'll both be answering your questions, and we'll see if we agree on things. We normally do, to be fair. Anyway, but I'll let you know when that's going to be. But for now, always remember, be kind to your mind. I'll see you next time.